I didn't think my life could change in the time it takes to sign my name. But it did. It happened on a Tuesday afternoon, 2 hours before I was supposed to close on a house. I was standing outside a title office in a strip mall, holding an iced coffee, scrolling through emails, feeling that rare kind of peace you get when you think you're finally doing something right. And then a man I'd never seen before walked up to me, looked me dead in the face, and said, "Don't go in there." I laughed. Because, what? He wasn't joking. He was in his late 40s, maybe early 50s. Work boots, a faded gray hoodie, rough hands like he did construction or drove a forklift. Not the kind of guy you expect to give you life-changing advice in a parking lot. He stepped closer, lowered his voice, and said, "If you sign those papers, you're going to spend the next 10 years paying for a life that isn't yours." Then he shoved an envelope into my hand. No greeting, no explanation. He didn't even wait for me to respond. He just pointed at the door of the title office like it was a trap, turned around, and walked away. I stood there with my coffee melting in my hand, my heart beating faster, staring at the envelope like it was either a prank or a warning. On the front, in black marker, it said, "Ethan Reed. Open before you sign." My name. My full name. And that's the part that made my stomach drop. Because you don't guess someone's full name in a parking lot. My name is Ethan. I'm 29 years old. I live in Ohio. I'm a project. I'm manager for an IT company. And if you've ever met someone who color codes their calendar and feels guilty for taking a lunch break, that's basically me. I'm not dramatic. I'm not paranoid. I'm the kind of person who believes if you do things the right way, they work out. Which is exactly why what happened next messed with my head so badly. Because I opened the envelope. And the version of my life I thought I was signing up for evaporated. Inside wasn't a letter. It was a stack of printed pages, screenshots, and something that looked like a credit report. On top was a sticky note with 3 words. "She's using you." No signature. No name. Just that. I flipped the first page over and saw a screenshot of an email. It was from a lender. My lender. Subject. D-line. Urgent. Borrower financial discrepancy. And the email wasn't addressed to me. It was addressed to my girlfriend, Maya. My girlfriend of 3 years. The woman I was about to buy a house with. The woman I thought I was building a normal life with. My hands got cold. I kept reading. And right there, in plain English, was the sentence that changed everything. "We are pausing the closing due to suspected fraudulent documents submitted under Ethan Reed's name." Fraudulent documents under my name. My coffee hit the pavement. I didn't even notice I dropped it. I just stood there, flipping through page after page, feeling like I was watching my own life from outside my body. And here's the thing, if you've ever been blindsided, you know the moment your Hyde's brain tries to reject it. Like, no, that can't be real. There has to be a misunderstanding. But the envelope didn't just have accusations, it had receipts. And they were organized like someone had been waiting for this moment. So I'm going to rewind because the why matters. Not because it excuses anything, but because it explains how someone like me, someone who thought he was careful, ended up an inch away from ruining his entire future with a signature. 3 months earlier, Maya and I started looking at houses. Not a mansion, not a dream castle, just a simple starter home. 2 bedrooms, 1.5 baths, a little backyard where we could grill in the summer, maybe get a dog. We were doing the whole adult thing. We'd been renting an apartment, that always smelled faintly like someone else's curry, and had neighbors who fought through the walls at 2 a.m. We wanted something normal. Maya was a nurse. She worked long shifts. She was the kind of person who could talk to anyone, make anyone feel safe. She had this way of touching your arm when she spoke, like she was pulling you into her world. Everyone liked her. My mom loved her. My friends loved her. Even my dad, who hates everyone, liked her. When I told people we were house hunting, they said things like, "Finally," and "It's about time," and "She's good for you." And I believed it, because the relationship felt steady. We didn't scream. We didn't do the toxic breakup, get back together cycle. We had routines. Sunday morning grocery runs. Her stealing my fries. Me making fun of her true crime podcasts while secretly listening. We had a plan. Or at least I thought we did. The first weird thing happened in late January. Maya started being unusually intense about the mortgage process. At first, I thought it was excitement. She'd text me during the day like, "Did you send the bank statement?" Or, "Did you upload your pay stubs?" Or, "Did you answer the lender's email?" Which, fine. But then it got to the point where she insisted on handling everything. She said it was because she had more flexible time during the day on her off shifts. She said, "Babe, your job is crazy. Let me take this off your plate." And I let her, because trust is supposed to feel easy when it's real. Then she asked for my login for my credit monitoring, the NAP. She said she needed to check something for the lender. I hesitated, and she laughed like I was being silly. "Ethan," she said, "we're buying a house together. We're building a life. Why are you acting like I'm some stranger?" And I didn't want to be the guy who treats his girlfriend like a suspect, so I gave it to her. That was mistake number 1. A week later, she asked for my social security number again. Not in a casual, "I forgot" way. In a "text it to me right now" way. I was at work. I was in a meeting. She kept calling. I stepped out, annoyed, and said, "Why do you need it again? You already have it." She said, "The lender asked for it to verify something." I said, "They have it. It's on the application." She got quiet for half a second, then said, "Do you want this house or not?" That was the first time I felt that tiny sting, that small shift where a question becomes a threat. But I still told myself she was stressed, because buying a house is stressful, right? We found a house we loved in early February, a little brick place in a quiet neighborhood with a big maple tree in the front yard. The seller had left up string lights in the backyard from summer, and even in winter it looked cozy. We put in an offer. It got accepted. We celebrated with takeout sushi on the couch, laughing like kids. Maya posted a photo of the sold sign on Instagram with a caption about new beginnings. My phone blew up with congratulations. My mom cried on FaceTime. Everything felt like it was lining up. And then 2 days later, Maya told me she had great news. She said our lender found a way to lower our interest rate. I was like, "How?" She said, "It's complicated, but it's legit. I handled it." My stomach did this weird thing again. I asked, "Can I see the email?" She said, "Babe, why are you always interrogating me?" I remember the exact words she used because they sounded so reasonable in the moment. "Can you just let me do something nice for us without acting like I'm trying to screw you over?" So I dropped it. Mistake number 2. Fast forward to the day of the closing. Tuesday. I took half a day off work. I wore a button-down. I brought the cashier's check. I had that anxious excitement, like first day at a new job. Maya couldn't come, she said, because she had to cover an extra shift. She told me she'd meet me after. She said, "Just sign everything, babe. It's all standard. I already reviewed it with the lender." That sentence sits in my head now like a siren, because it was designed to make me stop thinking. So I drove to the title office alone. I parked, I grabbed my coffee, and that's when the stranger walked up and told me not to go inside. Now, if you're thinking, why didn't you just ignore him? I get it, because that's what I would tell someone else. But there was something about him that felt urgent, not dramatic, not crazy, urgent. Like he wasn't trying to scare me for fun. Like he was trying to stop a car from hitting a kid. He handed me the envelope. And the second I saw my full name written on it, I knew this wasn't random. So I opened it. The first section was mortgage-related emails and documents. One email thread showed my lender asking for clarification on a gift letter from a family member. I had never heard of a gift letter. Then there was a PDF of a gift letter claiming my uncle was giving me $18,000 for the down payment. I don't have an uncle with that name. I barely have an uncle. Period. The letter was signed in a sloppy script, and at the bottom was a phone number. Next page, a screenshot of a text from Maya to someone saved as D. It said, "Just answer if they call. It's Ethan's uncle. Say it's a gift. Please." I felt my mouth go dry. Then there were bank statements. Not mine. Not ours. A bank account in my name at a bank I've never used, with deposits and withdrawals that made 0 sense. One deposit was labeled cash transfer, $9,500. Another was a withdrawal, $8,700. And at the bottom, account opened online. Online. I didn't open an account online. Then came the credit report. And that's when I had to sit down on the curb outside the title office because my legs literally went weak. There were accounts on my credit report I had never seen. A personal loan, 2 credit cards, a line of credit. All opened in the last 6 months. All with balances, some in collections. And there, highlighted in yellow by whoever printed it, was a note. Multiple inquiries for mortgage refinancing under borrower's name. Refinancing. I bought the house yet. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold the pages. I flipped further. More screenshots. This time, messages. Maya texting someone named D. I didn't recognize the number. The messages were short, transactional. Need another pay stub for Ethan? Can you make it look real? His job title is project manager. Use the new address. Don't put my name anywhere. I felt like I was going to throw up. Because that wasn't stress. That wasn't a misunderstanding. That was a plan. And suddenly I understood why the envelope said, "She's using you." But I still didn't know why. And I didn't know who the stranger was. So I did the only thing my brain could handle in that moment. I stood up, walked inside the title, an office, and told the receptionist I needed to talk to the closing agent privately. She led me into a small conference room with beige walls and a bowl of mints on the table. The closing agent came in smiling with a folder of papers. "Congratulations," she said. "Big day." I slid the envelope across the table. Her smile vanished almost immediately as she flipped through the first few pages. I watched her face change from confused to concerned to something like anger. She looked up and said, "Where did you get this?" "Someone handed it to me outside," I said. She exhaled, stood up, and left the room. I sat there staring at my hands, feeling like my entire body was buzzing. 5 minutes later, she came back with a man in a suit. He introduced himself as the office or manager. He closed the door, sat across from me, and said, "We were about to call you." He told me the lender flagged inconsistencies the night before. The gift letter didn't match the donor's identity, the bank account used for verification didn't connect to my known accounts, and the signature on one of the disclosures didn't match my signature on file. He said, "We suspect someone submitted falsified documents to push this through." I swallowed hard. My girlfriend, Maya. He nodded slowly, like he'd been expecting that answer. Then he said something that honestly chilled me. "We see this more than you'd think. It usually happens when someone is desperate and thinks the relationship will cover for it." Desperate. That word stuck. Because Maya wasn't desperate in my head. She was competent, confident, in control. But then I remembered the little things I ignored. Her weird insistence on handling everything, her urgency, her defensiveness, her pushing me to move fast. I asked the manager, "What happens if I had signed?" He looked me dead in the face and said, "The mortgage would be in your name. The liability would be yours. And if the documents were fraudulent, you could be dragged into an investigation. At minimum, you'd be paying for a house you didn't truly qualify for. using money you didn't actually have. I felt dizzy, because the life I thought I was building wasn't just being stolen, it was being booby-trapped. I walked out of that office in a fog, no house, no keys, no congratulations, just a stack of papers, and the sudden realization that I might have been living with someone who didn't just lie, but built lies. In the parking lot, the stranger was gone. So I drove to the one person I trusted completely. My older sister, Rachel. I pulled into her driveway, didn't even knock, just walked inside and said, "I need you to look at this because I feel insane." She sat me down at her kitchen table, spread the pages out like we were solving a crime, and as she read, her face tightened. "This is identity theft," she said. "I know." "No," she said again, more serious. "Ethan, this is serious. You need to freeze your credit, like now." So we did. Credit freeze, fraud alert, password changes. Then Rachel asked the question I didn't want to answer. "Do you want to call Maya? Or do you want me to?" I sat there for a long time, because once you call, the story becomes real in a way you can't undo. And part of me still wanted to believe there was some explanation that wouldn't destroy everything, but I already had the evidence. So I called. Maya picked up on the second ring like she'd been waiting. "Hey, babe," she said brightly. "How'd it go? Did you sign? Are we homeowners?" I could hear voices in the background like she was at the nurse's station. I swallowed. "Where are you?" "At work," she said. "Why?" "I'm looking at documents right now," I said, "in my name. Accounts I didn't open. A gift letter from an uncle that doesn't exist. Pay stubs. Emails. More messages." Silence. Not confusion. Not, "What are you talking about?" Just silence. Then she said, softly, "Who gave you that?" And that's when my whole body went cold, because she didn't deny it. She went straight to the leak. I said, "So it's true." She exhaled like she was tired. "Ethan," she started, "I was going to tell you after we closed, after everything was secure." "Tell me what?" I said, voice shaking. "That you used my identity?" "It's not like that," she said quickly. "I wasn't trying to hurt you." "That's literally the definition of hurting me," I said. Then she did something that still makes me angry when I think about it. She started crying. Not like someone caught doing something unforgivable. Like someone offended. That I was upset. "I did it for us," she said. "I did it because I didn't want to lose the house." "What house?" I snapped. "We didn't have a house. We had a plan." "We had a chance," she said, "and I didn't want to ruin it with paperwork." With paperwork? She said that like paperwork was the problem. I asked, "Why are there loans on my credit report?" She hesitated. "It's complicated." "Why is there a bank account in my name?" "It was easier," she said, like that explained anything. Then I asked the question that actually mattered. "Maya, what did you need the money for?" Another pause. Then she said, almost whispering, "My brother." Her brother, Devin, was 26, always in and out of business ideas. The kind of guy who says he's an entrepreneur but can't hold a job. I had met him twice. He had expensive sneakers and always asked to borrow cash. Maya said, "He got in trouble." "What kind of trouble?" "Debt," she said. "Bad debt." "How bad?" "Ethan," she started, and I could hear her voice cracking like she was about to pivot into a sob story. But I was past that. I said, "How bad?" She exhaled. 50,000. I stared at the kitchen wall like it might start making sense if I looked hard enough. $50,000, I repeated. "He was going to get hurt," she said. "It wasn't just credit card debt. He owed people." I felt sick. "So you took out loans in my name to pay your brother's debt," I said. "I was going to pay it back," she pleaded. I just needed time. And my house? I said. You tried to push the house through because you needed the down payment to look clean. I needed us to look stable, she said. If we had the house, everything would calm down. We'd be fine. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She was talking like the house was a bandage for a bullet wound. I said, Maya, you committed fraud. No, she said quickly. Devin did. He set it up. He said it was the only way. I just did what I had to do. I laughed, not because it was funny, because I realized she was still trying to make herself the hero. I said, Do you know what you almost did to me? She whispered, I love you. And I said, That's not love. That's using me. Then I hung up. My sister watched me in silence. Finally, and she said, You're not going back there. I nodded, but the truth was, I didn't even know how to begin untangling my life. Because we lived together. All of my stuff was in that apartment, and now I had to treat the person I loved like a threat. That night, my phone started blowing up. Not from Maya, from her family. Her mom texted, Maya says you're freaking out over nothing. Her aunt texted, You're really going to abandon her when her family needs help? Her cousin texted, If you loved her, you'd protect her. It was the same pattern you see in every story like this. They weren't asking if she did it. They were asking why I wouldn't accept it. And that's when I realized something ugly. Maya had already spun the narrative. She had told them, I'm version where she was desperate and I was cruel. So I sent one message to her mother, a photo of the credit report, a photo of the fake gift letter, a screenshot of Maya's message. Need another pay stub for Ethan. Then I turned my phone off. Update 1. The next morning, I went with my sister to my apartment. Rachel insisted on coming because she didn't trust Maya not to do something dramatic. We pulled into the parking lot, and Maya's car was there. My stomach dropped again. I walked up to the door. My key didn't work. She had changed the locks overnight. Rachel looked at me like, Are you kidding? I knocked. Maya opened the door, eyes red, wearing my hoodie. Behind her, Devin was sitting on our couch like he lived there. He smiled at me, like we were buddies. Hey, man, he said, we should talk. I stepped back because it was suddenly very clear that this could go bad fast. Rachel said, Ethan is not talking to you without a police officer present. Devin's smile disappeared. Maya started crying again. Please, she said, just come in. Let's be adults. I stared at her and said, You changed the locks. She sniffled. I was scared you'd take everything. That sentence is wild because she stole my identity and was worried I'd take everything. Rachel said, Give him his stuff. Now. Devin stood up and said, Look, it's not like she wanted to do it. It was my situation. She helped me. That's what family does. I said, I'm not your family. He shrugged. You would have been. That's when Rachel snapped. You committed fraud in my brother's name, she said. You're lucky we're standing here talking and not having you arrested. Devin rolled his eyes like she was being dramatic. Then he said the sentence that became the second twist. He said, Relax. If the house had closed, none of this would matter. We would have paid it back. We? Rachel repeated. Devin smirked. Yeah, we. I was gonna move into the basement for a while, help with the mortgage. You guys wouldn't even notice. I stared at him. What basement? I asked. Devin pointed at Maya like it was obvious. She didn't tell you? He said. The plan was to buy that house and refinance in 6 months. Pull equity. Clear the rest of my debt. Easy. I felt like I couldn't breathe. They weren't just trying to buy a home. They were trying to use my name as a financial lever. Maya started shaking her head, crying harder. Devin, stop, she whispered. But it was too late, because I finally saw it. The us Maya kept talking about wasn't us. It was her and Devin. I was just the credit score. Rachel grabbed my arm and said, "We're leaving." Maya stepped forward, blocking the door. "Ethan, please," she said. "I messed up. I know, but I can fix it. We can fix it." I looked at her and said, "You didn't mess up. You made a plan." Then I turned and walked away. Update 2. That afternoon, I filed a police report. Not because I wanted revenge, because my lawyer friend Rachel told me something. Unimportant. If I didn't report it and it came out later, it could look like I was complicit. So, I reported it. The officer who took my statement didn't look surprised. He said, "We see a lot of this. Usually, it's a spouse." That hit me weirdly because Maya and I weren't married, but she had access like we were. He told me they'd investigate the accounts. He told me to keep every document. He told me not to confront Devin alone. And then he said, "I'm sorry." In a way that felt real, like he knew what it cost to accept that someone close to you isn't who you thought. That night, Maya called from a new number. I didn't answer. She texted, "Please don't ruin Devin's life." I stared at that message for a long time because she still wasn't saying, "I'm sorry I did this to you." She was saying, "Don't make me pay for it." Update 3. A week later, I got another envelope. This one was mailed to my sister's house. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper. It was a printed screenshot of an online account, a login page, and beneath it, written in the same black marker as the first envelope, "Check your email archive, search drafts." Drafts. I felt my chest tighten because only someone who had watched this closely would know where to point. I went on my laptop and did what it said. I logged into my email. I searched drafts. And there, buried, were emails I never wrote. Drafts that had been typed and saved but never sent. One was to a loan company. One was to a bank. One was to a credit repair service. All written like I had written them. Same tone, same phrasing, because they were copied from emails I actually wrote for work. Someone had studied how I sound. Then I realized the worst part. These drafts had been created while I was at work, while my laptop was at home, which meant Maya had used my computer, my actual computer, not just my information, my device. And that made me feel violated in a way that's hard to describe, like my voice had been stolen. I called the number on the first envelope's donor gift letter and asked who it belonged to. A man answered. I said, "Hi, I'm Ethan Reed. I'm calling because your number is on a document submitted for my mortgage." He went quiet. Then he said, "Oh, you're Ethan?" My stomach dropped. He knew my name. I said, "Who are you?" He sighed and said, "My name's Darren." Darren. D. He was the mystery number in Maya's texts. I said, "Why are you in this?" He didn't sound smug. He sounded exhausted. He said, "Because I helped Devin a while back, and I didn't realize how far this had gotten." I asked, "Are you the guy who warned me at the title office?" "Yes," he said. "I didn't want to, but I couldn't watch you sign your life away." I sat down, because suddenly the stranger had a name and a reason. Darren told me he used to work with Devin, not officially. "Side stuff," he called it. He said Devin came to him months earlier asking for help with paperwork. Then Devin said he had one thing. A guy with good credit. A girlfriend who's in. Devin told Darren it would be harmless, that they'd pay it back, that it was just a short-term bridge. Darren said he believed him at first. Then he saw they were using my identity to open accounts. He saw they were escalating. And then he saw the closing date. Darren said, "That's when I knew I had to stop it." I asked him, "Why not go to the police yourself?" He was quiet. Then he said, "Because I'm not clean in all this. I helped in ways I regret. And I was scared." That was honest. And honestly, it made me believe him more. He said, "I don't expect you to forgive me. I just couldn't let you sign." I said, "Thank you." And I meant it. Because as messed up as it is, a stranger, who barely knew me, cared more about my future than my own girlfriend did. Final update. It's been a little over 3 months since that Tuesday. The house deal is dead. Obviously. The fraud accounts are being investigated. Some got closed. Some are still a mess. I check my credit like it's my religion now. I moved into a new apartment, different building, different locks, different life. Maya tried to contact me through mutual friends at first. People I thought were neutral suddenly had opinions. One friend told me, "You're being harsh. She's going through a lot." I said, "So am I." She put me through it. Another friend said, "But you know she loves you." And I realized something. A lot of people confuse love with attachment. Love doesn't put your name on a fraudulent loan. Love doesn't pressure you to sign papers you haven't read. Love doesn't treat your future like an ATM. A few weeks ago, I ran into Maya at a grocery store. I was in the frozen aisle, staring at pizza like it was a life decision. She came around the corner and froze when she saw me. She looked smaller than I remembered. Tired. She started to cry immediately, and I hated that part of myself that still felt something when I saw it. She walked toward me slowly and said, "Ethan, please, can we talk?" I kept my voice calm. I said, "What would we talk about?" She whispered, "I'm sorry." I nodded. Not because it fixed anything, because it was the first time she actually said it without a but. Then she said, "Devin is into trouble." I stared at her, and I said, "That's not my problem." Her face collapsed, and for a second I saw it, the reality of consequences hitting her. She said, "I didn't think it would go this far." And I said, "That's the thing, Maya. It already went far. You just didn't feel it, because you weren't the one paying." I walked away. No yelling, no scene, just a quiet exit. Because I learned something in all of this. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do isn't getting closure. It's choosing not to participate in the chaos anymore. People ask me if I miss her. And the honest answer is, I miss who I thought she was. I miss the version of my life where I believed I could trust the person next to me. But I don't miss the feeling of being managed, of being pushed, of being used. I'm rebuilding. Slowly, I'm doing the boring things again, the responsible things, freezing my credit, new passwords, two-factor authentication, budgeting like an adult who's been burned, and I'm also doing the emotional stuff. Therapy, talking to my sister, learning that you can love someone and still have to walk away from them. Because love isn't a reason to sacrifice your future. So here's my question for you, because I genuinely want to know. If a stranger handed you an envelope 2 hours before a major life decision and told you, "Don't sign," would you believe them? Or would you assume it's nothing and sign anyway? And if you were me, would you ever forgive Maya? Or is some betrayal so calculated that the only answer is distance? Let me know.